I've got some serious reflection there. Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Anthony Gronert, and I'm here today to share my adventure with bone broth. And it's been a lot of fun. I've learned so much. I started using bone broth about 6 years ago when I started attending the Nourish Festival. I was there helping people with their skin and how to find safe products to use. And I learned about this great thing called bone broth that you can have every day as part of your diet. And it's made such a difference. What differences? My energy, my health, my skin, my hair. Wow, it's just been remarkable. So I'm excited that you might be able to take a look and see if it'll bless you like me. And I have some slides. I'm going to do a slide presentation. And after that, you can enter your questions into the chat. And we will then uh, come back and just talk together. All right. So I'm going to share my screen. And this is the talk that I've been giving for, well, at least 2 years all over the country with Nourish Festival. And so we're just going to get started with this. Here we go. So this is the cover, just telling you a little bit about what I do. I take great meat and bones and leftover vegetables, and I turn them into a meal. And over the years, I've learned that it's best to create from the beginning to the end, and you end up with like 4, 5, 6 meals. And so that's why I call it bone broth meals. I might start with a chicken or a turkey, and I roast that or bake it, and then I'm able to use that for a meal. Then I take the carcass with all the bones, the skin, the ligaments, tendons, all the stuff that you wouldn't think about eating, put it into broth, water, and make it into a broth and create soup. So, have you ever heard of the stone soup folktale? This is really fun. I've heard it over and over, many different ways, with a button or with a stone or different things that you put in the water. But basically, a stranger comes to town and the stranger puts up a fire and then puts a big pot over it and simply puts a stone into the soup. And as the people come walking by, they ask this person, what are they making? And the most famous person I've heard tell this story is Dolly Parton. And she had talked about how her mother asked all the kids that she had, all her siblings, to go and get a rock from the garden, and they would put it in, and that would be the primary ingredient of their soup. But to make a long story short, people would come by and they'd be incredulous about this stone in the soup. And the person cooking would say, oh, it would be a little bit better if I had some potatoes, if I had some garlic, if I might have a piece of meat, maybe some bones you have left over from your dinner last night. And before you know it, the whole community comes together, adding each of their own ingredients into the stone soup. And by the end of the day, it's been brewing all day while people brought things for it to cook. They create this great stone soup, which long run is bone broth. These are the doctors that I have followed on the left, and then on the right are a number of online friends over the years. They've become friends. Some of them are newer friends than others, but they have all helped me in my journey to learn about, first, the benefits of bone broth, which I'll share with you in just a minute, and second, how to cook. I was a single mom for 21 years, and I had, quite honestly, not cooked very much at all because I owned a business and I had a young son, and I was single, and I would work all day, and whatever was quick and easy to get home at night, I would just do a lot of things that today, boy, that's a whole nother talk about what would I have done differently. But Dr. David Perlmutter really says it best here, as you can see on the screen. Our best peer-reviewed research continues to indicate that by far the best diet for human health is one that favors whole foods that maintain blood sugar, keep the gut lining intact, are devoid of pesticides, and provide optimal nutrients for the body. One effective way to improve and heal the gut is to provide your body with nutrients that ensure the integrity of the intestinal wall. One of the simplest and easiest foods in which you can find such nutrients is bone broth. So I have to tell you, at first it was really intimidating, but there's so much out there. Dr. Terry Walls, I read her book and there was so much information there. My friends, Tiffany Hinton, GF Mom Certified, really walked me through Elise Wagner. Those two were really key in helping me in the beginning. And then over the years, I would just watch read the different books from the different doctors. And it was a common thread from all of these well-respected practitioners that bone broth can heal so many things. I have seronegative ankylosing spondylitis, which wasn't really the hugest problem for me. It was 2 car accidents that I was in that really were the setbacks and caused my autoimmune to flare. And then, of course, for me to think about that, there might be some other things going on, like Epstein-Barr virus. You can see I follow Dr. Casey Holland and Anthony Williams, and recently Mandy Meehan. She's a young mom. So all these people have so much to share and offer. So take a look at their websites. Jen Fugo, I follow her because of her all the information she offers about skin. And I actually found Dr. Casey Holland through her great podcast. So what is healing bone broth? This is kind of my summation of what a lot of people out there call it. It's a nutrient-dense liquid made from simmering, and this kind of can gross some people out. I respect that. But after you've had the benefits, you will understand why it's so important. Let's face it, it goes back to the beginning of time when, we were gatherers and hunters, and that we used everything from the nose to the tail. So the cartilage, the bones, the ligament, the meat, the organ meats, the skin, the tendons. I mean, today, if you can't make your own bone broth, you're able to buy from a lot of some of the doctors on the previous page offer collagen and bone broth powders that you can add, into your smoothies and things like that. And that's another way to eat your bone broth, is if you're time limited, you can definitely do that. So you add organic vegetables and fruits. I'll talk more about organic versus everyday, so just watch for that. And it gives us this superfood that has so much in it. We need the bone marrow, the collagen, the gelatin, all these wonderful minerals and amino acids that heal our bodies. All right, so the benefits of bone broth for those of you who are new to it. It's easy to digest. And if you're someone who's on a journey right now to feel better or to get well, it's such a gift to have something that's so gentle and easy on you, whether it's to eat it, just to swallow it, or to heal the gut. My biggest benefits personally was definitely the increased energy and the boost to my immune system. I mean, a lot of people are really concerned right now during this pandemic, and I feel there isn't it's a major tool in my tool belt that I use bone broth every day, 8 to 24 ounces. It depends on the day. I definitely know it in my movement. My joints are lubricated. I know that my brain is healthier, and I know that my inflammation stays managed when I have my bone broth on a regular, consistent, uh, practice. And then it was actually when I was attending and speaking on other topics. My most popular one was about, identifying ingredients in your products and the things that you use, people were noticing that my look changed, that my skin was brighter, that my hair looked glowing and strong, and my nails, and I was just more energetic. And so that's when actually Jen Cafferty from Nourish Festival asked me and said, whatever you're doing, that's what we want to tell people. And of course, if you're looking for detox, weight, management, feeling full longer, what a gift that is from Bone Broth. So a lot of the first pushbacks that I get from people when they are telling me that bone broth just doesn't maybe feel like it's affordable or doable, I really try to make this, break it down so that it'll be easier, more affordable for everyone. So I go to the store and I encourage you to shop with friends, and I'll talk more about that on the next slide. But go to the store, look for the bulk or bruised section. You really can't see the prices on this, but that's like a whole bin of potatoes for $2 and green beans and tomatoes. In the back, you see peppers and then fruit. So if you do smoothies, this is a great way to just buy these, at a really great. You can chop them up, freeze them, can them. Some people do that, whichever works. But I encourage you to shop locally. Let's face it, let's support our friends and family or get references to people in the area. They're going to help you when you're on a mission. They'll let you know when they've got a bunch of things that you would really like to buy. They might have lists, or you would be surprised how wonderful people are when they reach out to you. Farmers markets, and of course, your own garden. Um, this is just an example. These are two different stores. I happen to have just moved. I spelled Wisconsin wrong. There you go. So we'll have to fix that for the next time around. But Stephanie and Frank own a grocery store in Delavan, Wisconsin. It's Frank's Piggly Wiggly. They've been there for decades. And when you walk into that store, there's so much help for those of us who are energy compromised or are really, really busy, because they've got this whole section, grab and go, where things are already prepped, cut up, recipe card. You just go and you go home and you can make it while you're, getting yourself together for the next day. They've got great organic, gluten-free, allergen-friendly ingredients. It's a big store with lots of options. And then I just moved to the Florida, New Smyrna Beach area. And I actually just started going to Heath's Natural Foods. And wow, they have got an amazing selection of products for those of us who need some specialty foods, and very priced, just wonderfully. And Tina, who has been there for a very long time, her parents used to own the place. Um, she is such a joy to see, and so much help every time I go in there when I'm looking for something specifically. But now I have met Lisa and Chad. They're the new owners, and it's so wonderful to walk into a place and, be able to reach out and talk to someone specifically. So I'm going to encourage you to shop local. Some of them have virtual resources. If you are homebound and virtual is your only option, there's so many these days. Reach out to your friends and see how you could shop with a local store or with what's offered in your area. I love going to farmers markets, supporting again the local farmers and the businesses we love. They grow great things and they raise things sustainably and responsibly. Another example is I go direct to the farms. When I was driving down here to Florida, I was literally on the internet looking around, and I met Alan and later his wife Andrea at Azalea Acres. They own a farm in Osteen, Florida, and they have the most incredible farming practice of all kinds of poultry. And they offer all the parts that we need when we make bone broth. We'll talk more about that. And of course, they have amazing eggs, just as fresh. And every day they move the chickens, so they have a fresh patch of grass. It's just quite an undertaking. I live in the Chicago area as well, and I farm. I farm. I do grow more things in the Chicago area, but Milk and Honey Farmstead. Scott and his team there in Wakanda have been helping me for years now. And they are a cooperative, so they can offer a huge selection besides that great quality. And both these farms deliver. So when you place an order with them, they will bring it directly to my door for me. And I know they are using safe, sustainable practices. They really care about their animals. The animals are not stressed when they go through the process of becoming food. So we don't have all that cortisol in our meat, which is, I think, and you can read out there, there's a lot of documentation on that's an issue for a lot of us. We're trying to manage our own cortisol, and then if our meat and our food is loaded with it, that's not a good thing. So yeah, shop with people and ask them questions and they will help you. For example, Alan and Andrea were kind enough to tell some of their clients about my talk today, and I'm excited if they're on. Welcome, welcome. Because yeah, I make lots of chicken bone broth soup from their wonderful birds. Now that I'm well, because I have limited movement because of my chronic pain condition, the ankylosing spondylitis, I was more apt to do container gardening because I could manage it easily. What's nice about a container garden too is in the Chicago area is you can move it. So you can bring it in the house if there's a cold snap or a freeze. You can bring it outside or move it around the yard depending on the season. And now that I'm in Florida, I am continuing to grow herbs, but I have to say that the farmers markets here have been really wonderful at providing things. Okay. So a lot of people say to me, how do you get all this stuff? Well, when I was younger, I would roast a chicken or roast a turkey, and then I would throw it out because who had time to pick at the bones as much? And I'm going to show you how much you will glean off of quote unquote a carved turkey or a chicken. I mean, it really, every time I make soup, it really, really amazes me at how much over the years I threw out. Then all the vegetables that you see on that cutting board, um, those are frozen. They are in my freezer. You either need a way to, I just keep a tub, a safe freezer tub, and just keep adding to it when I cook. And that way I have lots of things for the cook down to add to the nourishment of my broth. And when you hopefully are able to shop organic or sustainably risen, so there are no pesticides in your food, you will find that, you don't want to waste a morsel. As a matter of fact, you can see in the center photo there, that is something that Miss Tiffany Hinton taught me. And that is that you can re-sprout organic lettuce, and this happens to be celery. You can see the different stages right in the front there. I have the actual cuts in water and they're sprouting right in the middle. And then to the left, you can see one that sprouted still in the water. And then I actually end up eventually putting them into dirt and they will become like these bushes of wonderful, fragrant celery leaves. When I cook vegetables, this happens to be potatoes here, I save the water because look, I put all those herbs and spices and it's really wonderful. Anyway, I like to save all of that. If you're going to cook right away, you can keep it in the fridge and throw it in the soup the next day. But a freezer has been shown to be the way to best keep the nourishment in and keep your vegetables, that day fresh as best as possible, better than canned. Here you go. So on the left, a carcass just came out of the broth. It's been cooking about 2 hours in water. I'm looking at this, I'm thinking it might be a turkey, and it was maybe one or two there. But on the other side, that's all the meat that I gleaned. And I will tell you, it is a little bit of work. This is the part I don't enjoy anymore. But I put on my surgical gloves because it's just easier to kind of run your fingers along the bone and just pull all the meat off. If especially turkey's a little bit greasy, so that I like the gloves, but you can do it barehanded. Nice clean hands works as well. And then by using my hands, I also squeeze the meat so I can feel if there's any bones in there that I missed. So it really helps me, you know, get just meat in the final product of what I'm making. And then when you look at this, the actual 2 pots on the left, I bought for at estate sales. You can get great prices, and I've seen pressure cookers. I have not seen an Instant Pot yet at for resale, and I've actually been reselling quite a bit here. Um, but the stock pots with the lids right there, I bought at, just regular sales, and I've done the same thing here. It's wonderful. But whatever you have will work. I lean towards a stock pot because I make a lot when I make it and then I freeze it because some days I have more energy than other days. Uh, the pressure cookers, that gives you the ability to cook it a little faster. And yes, I absolutely make like my meal one. Like when I'm going to make a beef bone broth, I start making a pot roast. And the pot roast will be in the pressure cooker. Then, after we've had pot roast for dinner, I will then use all the leftover meat and let's face it, the bones and the tissues, and then my additional bones, which I'll show you in a moment, to create my next meal. So all of these are great tools to have. And I don't have a crock pot here. And a lot of people, although the Instant Pot can be used as a crock pot, but there you go. Just noticing on the chat, yes, I do freeze the potato water. Uh, that is a great way because I only use filtered water. It's got and actually vegetable water if I steam vegetables, but because I use all those herbs and wonderful spices, I save it in a tub in the freezer, and then that's just a little bit less filtered water I got to pull out of my filtered container. So, and any vegetables that you like to eat that are good in soup, I don't really know of any vegetable that's not good in soup. Just put it in the bag. I think on that previous slide, I'll go back real quick. Somebody was asking me what vegetables. There's some spinach, there's tomatoes, there's peppers, there's cucumbers, there was tomatoes from the garden, celery. I always have frozen because especially when I was in Chicago, my herbs didn't last. And so I would, put them in a freezer bag and keep them. All right, so go shopping with your farmer or go to your favorite grocery store and ask them for the bones. You want bones with marrow. So the top picture there is a leg bone with the marrow. We want to make sure that I find beef bone broth was the most healing because it had the most marrow and lots of collagen in it and gelatin that was just so healing for me. And I did see someone ask how long. It's a process, if you're doing this just for wellness, I would say a couple of months you'll start to really notice the difference. It's like going gluten free. If you only go gluten free for 2 weeks, your body hasn't even become uninflamed, inflammation hasn't gone down. So you need more than a couple of weeks to see a benefit for any type of change in your eating lifestyle. For me, bone broth, 6 months later, it was like looking at a different person. So for me, I needed a lot of healing and a lot of, nourishment, healing my gut. When you heal that gut barrier, you heal the brain barrier. I reduced the inflammation in my tissues. I was, just so more energetic. And hey, when you have more energy, you can do more, you can cook more, which is wonderful. And what's nice about cooking too is family can get involved. Kids love helping with this process. They love learning. It's amazing how helpful. And my husband's wonderful at helping me at the end of the process drain, to get just the wonderful liquid that we want. So that's the beef. Then you can see the chicken. This is the one before. I'm going to roast this chicken. You can see just a wee bit of herbs inside of it. And then, of course, the other plate is a turkey that was carved. So it's all the different things that we would use. And this is a general recipe. Take a quick picture of this or screenshot. But I'm happy. I'm actually going to, offer to send you lots of stuff here after we're done. So stay with me and we'll get more to you. But we want the bones with the meat, cartilage, and the marrow. this is the part that a lot of people don't think about. When you're working, especially with poultry, you want the feet. I know some people use pork feet, the head. I mean, have you heard of, there's some wonderful chefs out there now using the whole hog head for different types of meals. There's nothing wasted. When I came here to Florida, my first beef soup that I made was oxtail using the tail from the beef. So you want the organ meats, and this is an area where you can customize, and that's where blood work is really important. And partnering, this is done when I partner with my medical team, with my functional or integrative medical doctors, my MD doctors. They did my blood work, and I currently my actually my iron is a little high, and so I go a little light on the organ meats right now to not, to create a custom broth for me. If your liver, I'm sorry, if your iron is low, you can add more of the organ meats. It's amazing how you can customize this broth to make it for you, to make it to be the nourishing, healing elixir that it's supposed to be. Apple cider vinegar, what it does, I'll let you know, the first couple of years, I never used it, and I still made great bone broth, and that physical change happened. But again, education's everything. I learned, or missed it the first time around, that apple cider vinegar helps cleave those wonderful nutrients from the bones, from the tissues, and get it into liquid form so that you can get it into your body. So we use a couple tablespoons of that in there to help, get the most out of what you're making. I love to put big chunks of onions and garlic in there. And then I usually, and I'll talk more about this, but I usually just put the meat in with a little bit of seasonings, more like herbs, and then the onions and the garlic, and let that cook for 2 hours. Then I pull that all out and get all the meat off the carcass. When I put it back in for the remainder of cooking, and this is hard to do if you're doing Instant Pot. I know somebody's going to ask. You're right. With Instant Pot, I just do the full cook time. But I keep the bigger chunks because it's just easier to pull everything out, identify it, put it back in. Then I put the rest of all my vegetables for the cook down. They can be any size. Oh, and don't forget your bay leaf. I've done that. Definitely makes a difference. I like a couple, 2, 3 in there. Sea salt, pepper, and of course, filtered water. Please don't take water from the tap, because there's actually you can go to, and it's not coming to me right now, but a website, and you can just click getting your put your zip code in, and it'll tell you the quality of your water and what is in your water. But just as a general assumption, we know there's lots of chlorine, lots of fluoride. We don't want that in, we don't want to have that in our food. We get enough of it when we bathe and if you drink the tap water. So use filtered water. There's so many options for that. We can talk about that at any time if you have any questions. Yeah, reverse osmosis system. Somebody just posted they have a reverse osmosis system for their water, and that's a gift to be able to bathe in it, to cook in it, and have great water. You become a real water snob once you get used to that. Okay, this is my turkey bone broth recipe, just to give you a feel for a more specific recipe. And this is an area that I'm getting better at. I'm pretty general, and I'm being pushed now to write. Well, not push. I've been trying to do it for years. So if you're interested in being part of my help section to help me stay accountable to writing down all my recipes, send me an email or find me on social media, or go to right now, you can go right there to Nourish Festival and go to my booth, and, let's connect. And I'd love to have you try my recipes. And so it's making me write them down. All right, so we're going to take these bone broth ingredients. Notice in this picture, the bones at the top are roasted. Again, for many years, I never roasted my vegetables, but I am of Western European descent, and we boiled a lot of our food. And so to me, throwing in all the bones and the meat raw into the water and boiling it and, getting it to a nice simmer and let it simmer for hours tasted really wonderful to me. So that's one way to make it. But another way to get maybe a richer, probably a more chef type of flavor is to roast your meat first. Hence why you'll hear a lot about me making a meal first, like roasting the chicken, making the pot roast or a beef stroganoff, and then taking it after it's been cooked once and then putting it into the bone broth for a more sophisticated soup. I mean, let's face it, I have bone broth every day, 8 to 24 ounces. You need variety. So I create lots of different flavors. All right, cooking time. This is two separate things so that this is the way you would cook it for 6 to 10 hours in a stock pot or a crock pot or a slow cooker. Some people cook it for 12 to 24 hours. That smell and that flavor did not work for my family. So I limit my time to 6 to 10 hours. The lower number is for your poultry, your thinner bones, smaller bones. And of course, the 8 to 10 hours would be for your beef, or if you do venison or any bigger animals. And if you are doing that, I would love to hear your results and recipes and experience. The pressure cooker and instant pot obviously will cook much faster, and you won't probably stop and take out the meat and get the separate the meat from the bones until you're completely done. But all of these work. All right, I jumped ahead. So I kind of mentioned this already. This is the simplest way to do bone broth. You just throw the meat in with the vegetables and go. That's the way I did it for a bunch of years. Uh, Simple, quick, fast. Don't have to do a lot of prep. 2 steps is probably what most recipes out there you will see. That's what they're doing. They're roasting. So you put the bones with lots of olive oil and seasoning into the oven and roast them, or you can use a cast iron skillet. Again, just know when you use cast iron, um, you will find that that can contribute to the amount of iron in your food. So just be aware of that if you are needing more iron or if you, like me, have an abundance. Someone asked the question, does using liver muddy the stock? It absolutely does not at all. Especially since I'm going from raw to cooked in the water. I don't generally pre-cook the liver. That just goes in, and since it's cooking and tightening up in the water, yeah, I've had no problems. Now, I do know some people that need the extra nourishment from the organ meat, and they will actually take the organ meat and put it in a food processor or a blender and, you know, process it to add. So just that's a great way to boost nutrition if you have anyone that's dealing with failing to thrive for a child or a senior. That is a common way to boost. And again, something I'd love to talk at more length when we have time. All right, 3 steps. Make a meal first. Roast the chicken, roast the turkey, make the beef stew, whatever. Serve a great dinner, and then you're going to make your bone broth, and then we're going to actually make lots more meals. And so that's something that I'm going to talk about. And that's what my recipes, that's the way they work. The only time that I skim impurities from the top is when I might be using traditional meat, traditional farmed meat. If the meat has come from a farm where I know their farming methods and it's clean, I don't worry about anything that kind of comes up to the top. It's just usually fat. But if it's a traditional meat, I will skim at the top because in a way the animal's getting cleansed. And my suggestion is if you have to pick organic meat or traditional meat versus organic vegetables versus traditional vegetables, go with the organic vegetables or the farm raised vegetables that are as clean as possible. Plants don't have an ability to remove toxins from their bodies, but your animals do. They do have a liver and they do have, a cleaning system. So if you have to use traditional meats for your budget and use organic vegetables as much as you possibly can. And you can look up you know, the clean 15 and the dirty dozen to help guide you. That's a website, and that's the same website with the zip code. I think it's I don't know why that's eluding me at the moment, but I'll post it when I think of it, or if somebody else knows what it is, help me and post it in the chat. Okay, so once we're done cooking, we then put a colander over a second pot. So you need another large vessel of some sort. And then you are going to pour the soup through the colander. Now, some people want their broth to be pristine. They put a cheesecloth in here. I'm really good with little bits. It's soup. I'm going to actually go back and add to it. So I'm really good with just using the colander. Just an aside, make sure that you dispose of the cooked down ingredients. Those bones get very fragile. If an animal would get into them, they become like little razor blades in their gut and they will harm them. So you don't want your pets and you don't want any wild animals to get into. So be sure you discard of it very responsibly. And if you're using beef bones, always pull the the long marrow bones or the short marrow bones out before you put them into the colander. You don't want the valuable, wonderful marrow spilling out and then you throw it out. You want to collect it. Now, if you cook it long enough that the marrow is completely gone and it's dissolved into the liquid, there you go, no problem. But generally for me, it's still kind of hanging there. So I pick that up with a pair of tongs, put it on a plate, and then use a butter knife to kind of scrape it out. When it's hot, it's a little more gelatinous, and when it's cooled, it's a little bit more curdy, like you see here. But be sure to keep it, and that goes into your broth, you know, and you're good to go. Now, if you did that process here with the marrow, don't put it in, keep it separate if you're going to do this step. This is when you refrigerate or cool it. The fat will come to the top. On the left, I had already put the the liquid through a colander. The one on the right, yep, I was tired. I put it in. I didn't even think to, but it kind of made a unique, wonderful fat to save for making, my future recipes. I use this fat for making gravies. Like I'll use 2/3 this and a little bit of butter or olive oil to make sauces. Or some people take it to the next step and render it into a pure liquid cooking oil. So save it, put it in the freezer, and then have it when you cook the next time. And then you've got a wonderful clear liquid that you can drink like tea. You can, use it to cook vegetables in. And I save a little bit of liquid like this in ice cube trays so that I can add it when I'm cooking. But I tend to go to the next step where I actually chop up some fresh vegetables, or I will puree the vegetables that were in there, and I will then chop the meat up that I saved, and I will turn it into soup. And this is what I eat 8 to 24 ounces every day. The the upper left and the lower right are just the way the soup is stored. The one on the upper right, I added spinach. I had some leftover spinach and I just threw it on top of my bone broth for that day to give myself more nourishment, more greens, more fiber. And on the lower left, I used some like banza pasta, the chickpea pasta that, just really, again, makes it more of a meal for me. I store it in BPA-free plastic because I travel with it. I actually take it with me when I go anywhere. I have it in my not my carry-on. You can't take it in your carry-on. You have to put it in your checked baggage. And I do identify it. I just put a label on it that says chicken bone broth. For those containers, I'm not going to go anywhere with. I love the glass containers with the lids. And I tend to put the plastic on top just a little bit so that it really gets a tight seal. If some of mine it just doesn't seem to be as tight of a seal. And this is the next step, using your bone broth to make the next meal. So I love making chicken pot pie. This equipment is all from Pampered Chef and my good friend Tiffany Hinton's recipe on making individual chicken pot pies. And there were two versions there. On the upper right, you can see I'm a good German. That's gluten-free stuffing that I used bone broth, to totally soak it. And then I made this wonderful gravy. And of course, you got to have red cabbage. Oh, lower one is a wonderful beef stew that I made. And then, of course, we have shepherd's pie, the best way to use leftover mashed potatoes and any vegetables and meat. I actually make a wonderful turkey uh, shepherd's pie. So this is just another way to use all your food and to incorporate bone broth into your daily cooking. All right, so here you go. Give it a try. If you haven't tried already, be creative. It does get easier every time you do it. And guess what? I'm available. I would love to do Facebook Live with you or a video call, and we can cook together. As a matter of fact, you can sign up for that on my website and on the Nourish Festival in my booth. You will see that I'm offering that as a giveaway. So I would love to cook with you. As you can see, this is my cat, GP. I didn't know if she was a boy or a girl when she first entered my yard, so we called her GP because she was a great garden patroller. And she was just kind of observing and making sure about my veggies that I was doing the right thing. As you can see there's some frozen herbs, some sage, some parsley in that group there. And I'd love to be your wellness strategist, help you strategize the best way how to feel your best every day. And then as a mentor, I will just walk with you. I'm available when you're shopping, when you go to the restaurant, to make good choices, to help you not have to start at the beginning like I did. I call that on your Cliff Notes. And here's my contact information, but of course you can get a hold of me directly in the Nourish Festival for the next 2 days. So I am going to stop sharing, and I'd love to meet with you on social media. That would be really fun. Tell me what you thought of my talk. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. Let's see if I'm still here on camera. Who knows? Oops, you probably can see me, and I can't see myself yet. So hold on 2 seconds. There we go. Okay, I'm back. All right, I'm going to look at my chat here and let's just see. So Sabrina would like to know more about the freezing of the vegetables. Well, don't overthink it, really. Keep it simple. All I do is I enjoy my vegetables, but when they start getting close to a place where maybe I don't think I want to eat them anymore, they're, a little chewy or soft, then I don't even cut them up. I just freeze them as they are. You can use BPA-free, plastic bags, just space-wise. That's really a great way to get a lot of food very efficiently into your freezer. But you can I know also I like to use mason jars. You just put them all in there and mason jars will go into the freezer. Just make sure they don't fall out. And yeah, so hopefully that was helpful. Herbs are great. I keep little like envelopes of frozen herbs labeled inside of a Ziploc container, and then I can pull out the ones that I need for my recipe, and it's so wonderful. Even when like I'm making just a boiled vegetable or a steamed vegetable, you can throw in wonderful fresh parsley and chives, and that's just really great. All right, let's see what another question. Do I freeze them raw or cooked? I freeze the vegetables that I'm going to use in my soup. They're usually raw. But I also have made too much asparagus and it wasn't getting eaten. And guess what? That was cooked and I just froze it and threw it into my soup. And a lot of times if it's already been cooked, then I'll save it for the end when I'm actually making the soup part, and I'll just chop it up and put it in. So, what are my thoughts on store-bought bone broth? For a lot of people, that's the best place to start. My only concern is sometimes people don't love the flavor. And if you download my recipe, one of the first things I tell you is don't tell people it's bone broth. Because when they hear that, they're like, maybe it's just the sound of bone broth that makes them crazy, or they've heard that, there might have been chicken feet in that soup, which there was definitely. But it's a great place to start for a lot of people. I use many times organic broths to cook if I've run out of my own, and it works out really, really well. Just make sure, like I can't have MSG, so that's why I lean towards organics because then I don't have to worry about that. And I'm really, really preservative sensitive. So yeah, just make sure when you look at the ingredients, if you're gluten free, gluten is hidden a lot in broths, a lot. So if you'd love to see the recipes that I have, please reach out to me on Nourish Festival in my booth. If you would like to connect with me directly, you can just go to my website, elizabethanthonygronert.com, and you can just pop me a note, ask me questions. I would love to connect with you. And I'm also on Facebook going to start a group where I can share my recipes while they're kind of not perfected. And you guys can try them out and then let me know you liked it, you didn't like it. There you go. Let's see here. Anybody else have any other questions? I'm trying to look back. Yes. People were saying, how do I add bone broth into my diet? Well, the easiest is to make it into soup and have that. I actually have that for breakfast, especially when I'm traveling, because it's such a great protein and fat and all those great vegetables. It's everything I need for breakfast. And it really gets my day off to a good start. I also love doing smoothies, and sometimes people put bone broth into the smoothie just to make it simple. You just get it all in at one shot. It's a great place to put powders if you're using someone's collagen or gelatin or bone broth powders. That's a great way, is put it into your smoothies. Or if you're in a healing state, uh, I've had some where I've overextended myself, relapses type of things. I've actually gotten gelatin and added it to my bone broth to really boost it up. But when you add gelatin, just know it's got to be a hot liquid because it will become gelatin when it gets cool. And I use bone broth when I make sauces and gravies. I learned how to do that when I was young. My father loved gravy on everything. We're Western European family. So I'm even healthy wise, I love to have, I just know all the nourishment and all that fat that I glean from the soups I use to cook with. And all that nourishment goes into when I'm roasting potatoes or cooking up asparagus. I love keeping the ice cubes, so you can take the bone broth and fill an ice cube tray, dedicate that tray forever to be something you use for bone broth. And you then pop them out into some storage container in your freezer, and then you can just pull out 1 to 5, depending on how much food you're making, and add that in so you get that nutritional boost into your food. And that's really important if you're someone who's healing or you have someone who is failing to thrive in your life and you're trying to help them get as much nutrition in their body as possible. All right. So, all right. So Colleen's asking me, so after boiling all of the ingredients, should you discard all of the veggies in it because there might be bone fragments? No. Thank you for asking me to clarify that. So I save things that are soft and mushy that will be nice to add to the soup. I save carrots and squash and anything that isn't fibrous. Probably easier to say what I don't keep. I don't keep celery or onions because there's fibers in those and they almost look like little hairs after you put them into a blender or a food processor. And I don't like the way it looks in the soup. It's not necessarily bad for you, it's added fiber, but yeah, it's just more of an appearance thing. But that's a great way. You can use the cooked down veggies, put them into a food processor, and you can actually add that back into your soup to thicken it. This is if you're not going to use it as a liquid for drinking, or if you are going to use it just as a liquid for cooking, you could do this because it's going to add all kinds of great things. I also know that some people use the cooked down vegetables because they're so loaded with all the nutrition that was cooking and going on in there to feed pets. So, but I generally take those pieces and cut them up or put them into a food processor and throw them back into my soup because, yeah, every little bit is so good. I worry about bones um, more if an animal finds them, because when they bite down on those chicken bones, they are so fragile, they splinter. Same thing with the beef bones, and then harm will come potentially to the animal. So you want to make sure that put it away. We don't want our animals to get hurt. And yeah, freezing, as someone here was saying, loves the idea about freezing the herbs. That's a real time saver. Well, I look forward to meeting each and every one of you. And I really want to say thank you to the Nourish Festival staff. They have been amazing, so helpful to bring all of this information to us. So thank you to everyone for working so hard. And I look forward to speaking one-on-one with you. All right, bye for now. See you soon.